Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome to the second half of our overview / gameplay video coverage of Bretwalda. We'll pick up where we left off in the first episode. If you haven't seen that, there's a link to it up on the top corner here. Let's jump right in and resume. So here's a picture of our Mercia kingdom at the end of spring in the first year. We've taken over 3 areas and expanded our military power. So all in all, I think a fairly good start for Mercia. But now we're going to shift into summer. And summer brings the Vikings. So let's walk through the seasonal phase at the start of the summer turn. The first thing that we'll do is flip over the summer seasonal card. And let's see what we get for this. Oh, blimey, the Danes are arriving. But before the Danes arrive, we get a summer plague. So each unit with 1 hit point or 2 hit points rolls its battle die. If blank, the unit is slain unless 1 food is discarded from any area you control. Oh my. So looking at how this summer plague might apply to our units, our ruler here has 3 hit points, the Elderman has 3, but the Thanes both have 2, so we'll have to roll from them. And every faction starts the game with only 1 food. Nobody collected food in the spring turn here, so that means at most we'll be able to save 1 of our units. So I'm going to go through and roll in turn, starting with Northumbria. I'll roll for the other nations, and then I'll roll back for us here for Mercia to see how many of our units perhaps will have died. Both Northumbria in the gold and East Anglia in the green ended up losing a unit. East Anglia rolled 2 blank dice, one of which was on the ruler, so we used the food to save the ruler, but we couldn't save the curl. Likewise, Northumbria did likewise, rolling 1 on their ruler and 1 on the Thane over here. They could only save 1 because they only have 1 food, so they ended up losing 1 of their Thanes. Wessex made it through unscathed, and now it's our turn. Our ruler and our Elderman have 3 hits, so we'll roll for this Thane first. We want anything except a blank, which we get. We'll roll for this other Thane over here. Okay, so this Thane is okay. We're going to sacrifice our food to keep this Thane here alive, but that brings our food reserves down to 0. So we survived the summer plague, but we're not without expense. However, we did come through it better than both Northumbria and East Anglia, who lost units to the plague. Now let's talk about the Viking phase and what we're going to do to bring the Vikings in play. The Viking stage starts out with a bidding process, where you're going to bid both gold and or ally markers to be the one that can determine where the Vikings show up on the map. So if you can control where the Vikings show up, you can place them strategically to hurt your enemies and be to your benefit. If you can't, you don't have any idea where the Vikings are going to come, and one of the other players can drop the Vikings right in your lap. There are some other factors that come into play. We'll see how this all plays out. But the first thing we need to do is to figure out how much gold each faction has, and then we also have to figure out how many ally markers each faction has. Ally markers are like special gold coins that you can use only in the bidding phase when the Vikings come in, or in controlling the neutral units in the next phase. So let's see how we calculate how many ally markers, this transitory gold, each faction's going to get. The core way that you get ally markers, which basically are these temporary coins that have to be used in this phase, by the way. You can't save them from phase to phase. The way you get these first is, however many victory points or dalks you're behind the leader, you get that amount. So blue here, which is us, Mercia, we're going to get 1 of these ally markers because we're 1 point trailing. So I put 1 over on our board area. Likewise, green, East Anglia is going to get 1. And then red, Wessex is going to get 2 of these ally markers because they are in last place by 2 points. There are other ways to get ally markers, however. And one of the ways to get them is through development. And that brings us to this development board for Wessex, because they chose a development action that's actually going to get them ally markers. To understand that better, let's take a look at this development area of the board. So every nation has a development area of the board. One here is for actually development, collection, ferd, and movement. And the idea is that you have development tiles you can place in here that will strengthen these actions in subsequent turns of your game. Now, each faction starts out with 16 tiles, 4 colored tiles for each area, and they are identical, so everybody gets the same set of tiles. And if you choose a development action for your action in one of your turns, you get to pick any one of these 16 tiles and place it in its respective area. So when Wessex did a development action in the springtime, I picked this one here that's called Envoys. And if we zoom in here on Envoys, it says you gain 2 of these ally coins before each bidding. So Wessex, which got 2 ally coins by being behind in the bidding, is also going to get 2 more ally coins because they've chosen this development action. So this makes Wessex, they're making a strong play to control the Vikings when the Vikings come into the battle. Now, there are other ways you can get ally markers, but those are the 2 major ones. Some of the diplomacy cards might have ally marker potential in them. You can trade them among players as well, because trading and bargaining is basically a free-for-all in the game. So if you're playing with 4 players, making alliances and making deals could shift these around. But that's really all the opportunities each faction has for gaining ally markers at this current stage in the game. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a bidding where each faction bids how much gold plus ally markers they want to commit to the Vikings, to be able to control the Vikings in this stage. And at the beginning of this stage, each player has to state how many gold and ally markers they have available to put into this bidding phase. If we look at Northumbria, they only have 1 gold coin and they have no ally markers because they are in front. So they have a capacity of 1 as 1 gold coin. Wessex has 4 ally markers and 2 gold coins. Their bidding capacity is 6. As Mercia, our bidding capacity is 2. We have 1 ally coin and 1 gold coin. East Anglia's bidding capacity is 3, 1 ally coin and 3 gold coins. Now, what would happen in a 4-player game is that secretly each player would put into their hand the number of ally markers and gold coins they want to bid on the Viking control in this phase and then reveal them. Who's ever got the most total wins control of the Vikings in this phase. If there's a tie, the pretender picks who gets to control the Vikings. In this case, if they were a tie, it would be Northumbria that can control them. But in this case, we know Wessex is going to win. They've got 4 ally coins. You have to use them in the current phase. You can't save them. So we know they're going to bid at least 4, and nobody else is close to that. So I'm going to simulate the bidding where everyone's going to bid their ally coins. Wessex will bid 4, Northumbria bids 0, Mercia and East Anglia bid 1. We're going to clear out the ally coins, and Wessex has 1 control of the Viking Raids. You might be wondering, how do the Vikings and Danes come into play? And that's where this Viking deck comes into play. So Wessex bid a total of 4 to get control of the Vikings. So they're going to draw 5 of these cards. On the other side of these cards are locations on the map, and that's the locations where the Vikings come in. So let's pick 5 of these and spread them out and take a look. So these are what these Viking cards look like. We can see we have a coastal area highlighted and then 1 region highlighted. And then the region's name is listed here, Lindeline. Likewise, they follow the same path. So as Wessex, they can pick from any one of the 5 cards that they've drawn, highlighting a coastal area and a region. They also got an interesting one here which says Danes to arrive to any coastal area you choose. I'm assuming by coastal area they mean the water and not the region, which means that the Vikings themselves would probably stay on the ship. Not quite sure on this one. There isn't a clarification in the rules, but I'll assume that by coastal area means they're going to leave them in the ship. So for that reason, I don't think Wessex is going to pick them. But what I'm going to do now is look through these other 4 and pick an area where I want the Vikings to arrive, where I think it would do the most damage and productivity for Wessex. So of the 4 regions that they had cards for, 2 of them here were nearby Wessex in themselves, which wouldn't be good locations at all. They don't want the Vikings to come near them. One of them would actually land the Viking forces right here in this area where Northumbria has all of their forces, but I think Northumbria would wipe the Vikings out there. However, and there were none near us as Mercia here, so I was thinking I'd be fair and try to place them near us. But there is one that puts the Vikings in the coastal area up here and then in this land here. And that's actually pretty damaging to Northumbria for a number of reasons. So now we're going to have the Vikings come in by ship here, and then they're going to land here, and we'll see what happens as they come into play. The Vikings always come in with their Viking ship, and they come in with 2 of these Viking thanes. And then if there's a ship here, then there has to be ship-to-ship combat, but there are no ships there of any of the factions, so the Vikings then are able to land. And the card here designates this one here, Polinium which is right here. So the two thanes are going to come here and take control of this area. Now, if there were any forces here, there would be combat that would be instigated, but there's none. So the Vikings have control of this area. The only way to get them out of this is to defeat them in battle. So that's now creating a big problem for Northumbria. However, one more thing happens. The Vikings pillage all adjacent areas, which means they're going to pillage the capital here of Northumbria. This area actually is, I think it is adjacent, yes. So they pillaged these 3 areas. We're going to put down these Viking pillage markers. That means Northumbria cannot collect food or collect gold in any of these areas until they remove the Vikings. And they can't get any income unless they collect food. So this creates a lot of problems for Northumbria. They're going to have to deal with the Vikings. And that ends essentially this Viking phase. But the Vikings stay in play after this and have created some pretty big problems for the leading faction right now, which is Northumbria. So well played by Wessex to create problems for one of their opponents. We'll see as the game continues on how the Vikings might be moved about and different things that are going to happen here. But now it's time for us to go into the summer phase. Northumbria is the pretender. They're going to go first and we're going counterclockwise. So I'm going to make a move for Northumbria, make a move for East Anglia, and then we'll come back to Mercia and see what we're going to do in our turn. Both Northumbria and East Anglia performed a collect action. Northumbria is actually in a bind here because they need more units to be able to safely take on these Vikings that are here. And because the Vikings are pillaging in here, when they collect, they didn't get a lot of resources. And we'll see how the collection action works once we do it as one of our own factions. But what I'm trying to do with Northumbria is to have them rebuild some units so they can go fight those Vikings and take the Vikings so they can free up these lands that are getting pillaged by the Vikings. The Vikings are a major thorn in Northumbria's side. East Anglia, likewise, they lost some forces to the plague. They need more forces to be able to come up and spread out and capture the land. In order to get more forces, they need more money, so they collected gold and food. And again, we'll see that in more detail when we do it. Now we come down to our turn, and we have our action for the first turn. One thing I wanted to show about the development boards is that each side has these 4 markers that signify the 4 different types of actions: movement, furred with military units, development with the gear, and then collection with the money. And you place it, when you do your first action, you place it here. We're going to do a movement action. That means when we come back to it in the next turn, we've already used our movement token. We know we have to use one of the other 3. But I think I have a bold move ready for us as Mercia. We're going to move our Thane, which is a movement of 2, to cross a thick border, cross 2. So we're going to move it back into the capital because in the next phase, the neutral units are going to move, and there are neutral units you can see just right here in 8 adjacent areas. So it would be really easy for one of our enemies to control a neutral unit and pull him in here. So I'm just trying to defend the capital with that. However, we're going to stay on the offensive here. This is a little bit daring because there is an Elderman here and it's in a city, so it's going to get a defensive value. We're going to move all our forces here, our king, our Elderman, and our brave Thane in here and take on this Elderman in battle. This is very similar to the previous battle we showed, except the Elderman gets a red die instead of a gold die, yellow die, so it's a little more dangerous for us. Now, there are some elements of combat that we haven't looked at yet, how hits are assessed when there's more than one unit, and some of the play with lordship cards, so we might see that in this battle now. But let's go on. We're going to roll first for our attack. We have 2 reds and a yellow, hoping for something good here. Oh, that's pretty good. We've been rolling well. 3 swords and 2 shields, which is pretty good for us. So we've got 3 swords and 2 shields. Let's see what the Elderman does. I hope they fail. Oh, that's actually not very good for us here. Okay, so the Elderman rolled 3 swords. We have 2 swords that block it. So one of our units takes a hit. 1 hit got through. You start with the lowest value unit and you assign all hits to one of them before you go on. So as we're in the first round, we have this little blood drop here that signifies we're going to put it right here on our Thane. He's taken a hit because one of the hits got through. We have 3 swords. The Elderman rolled 2 shields there. So likewise, we have 1 excess hit over what he was able to hold. So we did hit the Elderman here. One of the things we didn't show in the previous battle here is that after there is before battle cards, during battle cards, and after battle cards that you can play as well. But right after you roll the dice and assess the damage, you can play a lordship card automatically for 1 increased sword. So we could conceivably, we have 2 extra swords here. I think actually we're going to do this. I don't want to do that. Now, we're going to go for one more round of battle. Okay, we're going to risk it here. So we're going to take a chance. So this now is the second and final round of battle. Let's get some good rolls. Oh, that's pretty good, but we didn't get a lot of defense. So we got 4 hits and 1 shield. Oh, that's not what we wanted. But, I mean, it's all things considered, it could be worse. So our 4 hits on that 1 shield, I put 3 hits on the Elderman. We've killed the Elderman and we are victorious here because we've eliminated the enemy forces. However, the Elderman rolled 2 hits on 1 shield. That puts a second hit on this, and we can't distribute it over the stronger units. You have to stay on 1 unit, the weakest one, until it's dead. So unfortunately, the Thane takes his second hit and he is killed. We've lost our first unit. So Conquest at a price for us. That was, we've suffered our first losses here. However, we have a card that we can play after a battle here. This is, I think, a pretty cool card and a pretty cool time for us to play it. This card is Momentum. Played after a battle, it says, after you win a battle, move any number of units from the battle area to an adjacent area, which means we're going to play that card after the battle, and we can move the units from here. Oh, the question is, do we want to go down here and try to knock this curl out and take this city? Or actually, let's be a little bit more conservative. Let's go to this area here because there's a food icon here. That'll give us some more food. So we're going to move up here and grab control of this area here. So with all being said and done, I'm pretty happy about how we were able to expand in this area. We've got 5 areas now. We've got 2 Dalks, although we could use some more forces here to defend this ground that we're taking. So we might want to do some third action, but we need some money too. So lots of things to do. Let's continue on now with the next round of turns here in the summer. I'm going to do the other 3 factions, then I'll come back to us for our final action in the summer. In Wessex's turn, they moved from their capital with their ruler and their Elderman. Finally defeating the Thane was here. They rolled much better, which gained them this area. They're getting back on track. Both East Anglia and Northumbria did a third action to bring in a Thane with the money they had raised from collecting in the previous round. So they're building up their forces. Northumbria so they can take on the Vikings. East Anglia because they just need more forces. And now it comes to us as Mercia, what we're going to do with our action. And this time we need some gold to buy more units, to get more units and to defend the areas that we've captured here, that we've conquered. So we're going to do a collection action, and we haven't seen that yet. There are 2 elements to the collection action, and it happens unless you've got developments that you've built into your empire's skill tree that allows you to collect differently. A development action only happens where you have units. So that's a little bit of a disadvantage. That's another reason why we need more troops, is so we can collect better. Now, each one of these areas, you'll notice, has a numerical value on them. This is how many coins you collect if you collect in that area. So we're going to collect in our capital. First, we're going to collect money. That's worth 2 gold coins. This area that we moved up to here doesn't have any gold coins whatsoever. So when we collect money, we're going to get 2 gold coins. We had 1 gold coin before, so that gets us up to 3 now. Now, the second part of the collection action is that you collect food. You basically harvest the crops. And these are the little food tokens that go on the board. And these are placed actually in the area where those troops are, where the food symbol is. So our capital has 1, and then this area over here has 1. So we've got 2 food within our empire at this point in time. And that's essentially it for the collection action. It's a very simple, straightforward action. That ends our second action. I'm going to go do Wessex's last action now. Wessex as well did a collection action to gather some financial resources. They now have 5 gold coins and they added some food here to their capital. And with that, we've finished all of the 8 actions in the summer phase. And we're going to go right now to the priority phase to determine who is the pretender for the next round. Here's the current victory point totals. We've pulled even now with Northumbria, and Wessex has gotten their first victory point with 1. So we're tied with Northumbria for the to get the role of the pretender for the next phase, which means we go to the first tiebreaker. The first tiebreaker is the number of areas that you control. Northumbria controls 3. We control a hefty 5, so we are the pretender for the next round. So we are the pretender. The snakeheads are going to be turned to the right now. I want us to go clockwise. So we're going to go from us to East Anglia around, ending with Wessex before it comes back to us again. So with that, we have completed the priority phase. We've completed the summer. It's time for us now to go to the fall. As we head now into this fall season, the interesting aspect of this is the special phase that starts the fall turn, which is neutral units and Vikings can move. And so we're going to see how this happens. As usual, there's going to be an involvement with these ally coins, and we'll walk through this whole process as we get going. So let's jump in and get started. Time to go to the fall. As with all seasons, the first thing we're going to do is flip over the fall card. Autumn Diplomacy. Every faction takes 2 ally coins. This will make this next phase very interesting. So I'm going to distribute these among each one of the 4 factions. This phase also starts with a distribution of the ally coins to the factions that are behind the leaders. So Northumbria and us are in first. So both East Anglia and Wessex are going to get another ally coin each. So I'll distribute those. Lastly, we saw that Wessex has the development. You gain 2 ally coins. So they get between the Autumn Diplomacy that gave them 2, trailing in victory points by 1, and then also having this diplomacy, this development skill, they get 5 big ally coins. So we've distributed all the ally coins, and now it's time for us to go to the phase where the neutral units and Vikings move. And let's talk about how that works. So now that we've distributed the ally coins, it's time for us to start moving the neutral units and the Vikings. And how this works, it goes in reverse turn order. So we are the pretender starting first. So in this phase, we're going to be last. It goes clockwise. So we're going to start over here with Wessex. Now, you can spend ally coins like gold, or you can spend gold to basically pay the units that you want to move. And you pay the value of the unit, and then you can perform an action with them, a movement action with them. You can activate all the units in an area if you would like. So if, for example, Wessex wanted to move everything here, they could pay 3, which is the value of the Thane, to move the 3, and then 1 for the curl and 1 for the curl. If they spent 5 coins, they could activate all of the units in here and have a full movement with them. Now, we talked about how the faction curls can't move, but the neutral unit curls can move in this phase. Combats are resolved from this, and everything goes through as normal, except the neutral units are going to move. Now, of particular note here is Wessex has 5 of these ally coins, so they can create some pretty serious havoc here with this. And this is going to go around in sequence. So Wessex is going to bid and move some units, then Northumbria will go, then we'll go, and it's going to continue going on until each faction passes, at which turn this phase will end. So I'm going to start with Wessex. I'm going to go to Northumbria, I'm going to go East Anglia, and then I'm going to come to us, moving some of these neutral units and showing what happens. When it comes to our turn, we'll be moving some as well. I'll also show anything that moves that has an impact or a bearing on Mercia as well. Just to show what can happen and how dangerous these can be, the East Anglia ruler was alone here. The Elderman was right here. Wessex would have the 5 ally coins, spent them all to activate the Elderman, moved him in here. They both fought to the death and knocked each other out. So the ruler of East Anglia now has been killed. They're going to have to select and pick another ruler, bringing in their second ruler of the game. And one thing that we didn't talk about in this, in the precursor phase, is you have 3 ruler cards. There are some instant win conditions for ending the game, but another way the game can end instantaneously is if a faction's 3rd ruler is killed. So this one here is killed, and this is out of action. Now they're going to have to pick a king or a queen from the 2nd ruler card, bring them into the game. If they lose 2 more rulers, the game would end at the end of that current turn. Northumbria took advantage of our weak defensive position here by paying 1 for curl. They can move 2. It moved 1 here, recaptured this area, moved 1 here across these thin borders because they have movement of 2, and it took both of these areas away from us, which is unfortunate indeed. East Anglia, who had their ruler killed by Wessex, spent 3 gold to get this Thane activated, moving it down in here, knocking out the curl that was in the capital of Wessex, and that caused them to lose their mead hall and all the food that was there. So a crippling revenge move by East Anglia on Wessex. To prevent other factions from getting the same idea, we're going to spend 1 of our ally coins to move this curl and get it out of the way again, pushing it up here into this other area to the northwest to prevent someone else from paying money to move it and do further damage in our areas. The other factions are out of ally coins, and I don't think it makes sense to spend gold to move much around. We're going to spend our last one here to move this one further away from us here to get it out of the way, just sliding it over here. I don't want to send it up into combat here because I think it would lose against the Thane, so that would be just helping out Northumbria by moving it in there. And with that in mind, everyone now will pass as we go through this phase, which means the moving of neutral units has ended. Nobody spent money to move the Vikings, which could have been an interesting move because you could have perhaps moved them and created some more pillaging, but it didn't really make sense. They're kind of well positioned where they are right now. But the biggest consequences of this phase here was that East Anglia loses its ruler up here, and then Wessex loses its capital here to this pesky Thane. So East Anglia and Wessex getting at it. We lost 2 areas as well, which is inconvenient for us too. And now with the pre-phase done, now we're going to go into the turn phase. We are the pretenders, so we're going to go first in this next phase. So now it comes to us in the fall turn. We take the first action out of all the factions. And one of the things we want to keep in mind here, winter is coming. And in winter, you have to feed your troops. And this is how food works in the game. Your ruler eats for free. You don't have to provide any food for your ruler. Every other unit that you control has to consume 1 food from someplace on the map. It doesn't have to be in the same map, but it has to be from an area you control. So we have food that we collected last in the summertime here in our capital. We have 1 food that we collected up here in this area. So we have 2 food. So if we get to the winter in this current state, this Alderman would eat this food, this guy, the Thane, would eat this food. We're all set for food. But if we were to recruit Curls and not provide more food for them, any extra troops would die and starve to death in the winter. The winters are harsh here in Bretwalda. So we have to keep that in mind, and that's going to a certain degree, shape what we can and want to do in the fall, because it's at the beginning of winter when troops feed, so you have to be ready for winter when it comes. With that in mind, and because we haven't seen this action yet, let's go do a development action for Mercia and show how that works. So development actions are 2-step actions. We're going to put, first up, we'll put for our first action this little gear icon, which signifies the development token. And then for a development action, we take a look at our 16 development tiles. There are 4 red tiles, 4 blue tiles, 4 yellows, and 4 development for green tiles, each one for these areas here. So you're going to be able to put 2 over the course of the game in each area of the matching color. That means you're only going to be, at best, using half of your development tiles in any game of Bretwalda that you play. Now, the benefits that these provide are akin with this type of action. So for example here, this development action is going to make things stronger. This one says your cities provide an extra shield in each battle round. This one here says build any numbers of buildings with development. So usually when you do a development action, the second part of it is building a building, and normally you can only build 1. If you have this, you could build as many as you want. Here is for the collection action. 2 of your units do not need food in the winter. So this would allow you to have a larger army because you don't have to feed those units. So this actually would be a pretty good one for us to get if we wanted to grab this now, because then we could recruit in the next turn, and that would give us a larger army for the winter. So I'm tempted to take that one. Here's a Ferd action. It says on Ferd recruit. On Ferd, so when you recruit 1 curl in each of your countryside areas you control for free. That's a pretty strong one here. Now, we also talked about how curls can't move, but one of these movement actions, if you pick this development, move your curls like any other unit. So this is pretty helpful because you can spread the curls all about the places rather than having just stuck in the areas where you recruit them. So lots of different benefits and things to think about as you're doing a development action. And I think for the sake of getting a larger force as quickly as we can and not worrying about food, let's actually do this. We're going to pick this development here that says your 2 of your units do not need food in the winter. So that's going to allow us immediately to have a slightly larger army, which I think is going to help us early on here in this this current year and going into next year as well. I mean, it's going to be nice to have, we don't have to worry about that food. So we're going to pick that as our development. This is free. And that's the first part of the development action. The second part of a development action is you can build a building. All buildings cost 3 gold coins. We have 3 gold coins, so we're going to spend those 3 gold coins. They go back to the general supply. And then we're going to pick one of 4 different types of buildings. And let's talk briefly about which each one of these buildings do. So The granary, and they have different restrictions on where you can build them. You can only build one building in an area except your capital, where you can build two. Now, this is the granary. The granary allows you to get one extra food when you take a collection in an area that has a granary in it. The mead halls allow you, when you take a furred action, you have the option of buying with gold the diplomacy card, the lordship cards, but with the mead hall, you get a free lordship card when you do a furred action. So that can be pretty powerful too. This is the harbor, and the harbor allows you to exchange food and gold at an exchange rate. That's pretty helpful. And this is the abbey we talked about. These are good for getting that victory point. These also give you extra gold when you recruit in an area. They give you extra gold when you recruit with when you collect in an area with an abbey in it. With all those things in mind, I want us to start getting more lordship cards because I think they're helpful in combat, and I think we're going to go the combat route. So with the 3 gold that we spent, we are going to buy a mead hall, and we're going to drop this. We can build mead halls in the cities, in the capital. So for one of the 2 possible buildings that we could build here in our capital, we're going to build a mead hall. Now, one of the rules about building 2 buildings in an area is you can't build the same building type. So we have to build something else in that area. But we've now added in a development that's going to help feed our troops in the winter. And we've added in a mead hall that's going to help us to get more lordship cards and be more powerful in combat. So with that in mind, we have finished our development action. I'm going to go around to the other 3 factions and do their actions and then sum them up, and we'll come back for our second action. East Anglia is hurting with the loss of their leader. They'll get them back in the winter of the next turn here, and they only have 1 gold coin. So we're going to need to collect and get some funds here. They took a development that's going to allow them to collect in 2 areas that you don't have your units in, because you remember when you collect, you only collect in areas with your units. So we're going to be able to collect in 2 areas. That's going to give us a big collection in the next action here in this turn. Northumbria is still suffering from the effects of these Vikings here with the pillaging going on here. They have decided to move their thanes. They moved over here, moved over here. They as well, they are completely out of gold. They're going to need some food as well to survive the winter. So they are moving into these areas and hopefully be able to build some food, get some food in the next turn as well. Wessex took a development action, the same one that we did, which allows them to feed 2 units in the winter for free because they don't really have a good way to get food, and they would lose their alderman, leaving only their ruler because they lost their capital here. They're in somewhat of a world of hurt too. We come back to us for our second action in the fall. That was dumb. We should not have built the mead hall because we spent the only money we had on the mead hall. We don't have any gold coins right now, so we can't recruit curls because they cost 1 each. So that was dumb as a brick. Normally I'd be tempted to undo it, but we're not. With this, the turn's gone on and things like that. We are instead that we're going to have to collect because we need money. And the only place we get money here, we get 2 gold coins for recruiting, for collecting in our capital. We also get more food. So we've got plenty of food lying around on the map, which makes that whole development action that we took to have extra food seemingly even more pointless. So not the smartest move there for us as we go through these fall turns there. Now I'm going to make the last moves for the factions here in the fall, and then we'll shift over towards the winter turn. East Anglia collected, picking up 5 big gold as well as enough food to feed everybody for the winter. They have that special bonus that allows them to collect in 2 areas without units, so they use that to grab the extra gold. Northumbria, likewise, desperate. They have no food whatsoever thanks to the Vikings and the pillaging, so they're messed up by the Vikings. They decided to collect, so they got 2 food units, and they were able to get 2 gold coins here. They're not going to have enough units to feed all their troops, so someone's going to starve in the winter unless they can solve that problem. Wessex biding their time by recruiting a thane and paying 3 gold. Now they're going to be able to come back and try to retake their capital and hopefully get back on the expansion track here. And with that, the fall comes quickly to an end with relatively little combat. We're going to go now to determining who the pretender is for the next round. We're going to go to winter is coming, but first let's calculate our pretender. Not much progress made on any of the victory points with the fall turn here. We actually went backwards 1. The pretender goes to Northumbria in this turn because they still have their 2 original areas under control. Northumbria claims the pretender, and they're going to go clockwise for the next turn. Now there is no bidding in the winter, so we don't have to do the ally coins this phase because there's no bidding to go on. Lastly, we move our turn marker to winter of the first year, and it's time to go to winter. As we slide to winter, you'll recall that East Anglia's ruler was killed in the fall. As a reminder, they suggest putting your new selected ruler on top of the next season card, and this is a free placement. This has a value of 5, but when your ruler is slain, you get a free replacement of your second ruler card. So we're going to put them back into their map on any area they control. They've dropped the ruler up here with their Elderman, perhaps being able to now come over here and capture the rest of this peninsula in this turn. Back in action, as always, we will pick the next season card and see what kind of effects are going on with us here. Oh, okay. Bloody Winter. So each winter starts, in addition to having to pay your units food, each winter starts with a penalty. So you have to remove 2 from the areas you control, 2 food from the areas you controlled, and then feed your armies. This is going to create some problems for Northumbria. And the Bloody Winter effect that will be in effect for the whole turn, roll +1 white die in each battle round. Interesting, so the battles in winter will be bloodier. And then one of the special features of winter that distinguishes it from the other seasons is that when you do the collect action, you can't collect food. You can collect gold, but you can't collect any foods. Let's go feed our troops now. We'll start with us and work our way around. So the winter penalty, we have to remove 2 of our food. We'll remove 1 from each. And then if you recall, we have the 2 of your units do not need food in the winter. So we have our ruler that eats for free, and then these 2 units can eat for free. So we're just going to leave our food out there. That turned out to be pretty handy for us, resolving our food issues. Likewise, Wessex picked the same skill that we have, that they don't have to feed 2 of their units. They don't have any food at all in their kingdom, so there's no penalty to pay, and they can feed everybody because of that special development feature that they created. However, Northumbria, this is catastrophe. They have to take 2 food because of the winter penalty, and then they can feed. They have no food left over. We can see here how the Vikings messed them up because they can't collect in these areas. They had to redistribute troops to collect. So this little pesky action here has really messed up Northumbria's advances here. They have no food at all. Their ruler eats for free. Everybody else starves to death. All they have left is their ruler. This is setting them back what a catastrophic winter for Northumbria here, setting them back quite well. Now we could conceivably, or even East Anglia or us could conceivably say, okay, let's team up and let's really put the hurt on Northumbria here, knocking them perhaps back even more. East Anglia has 4 food. They'll pay 1 food penalty from each place, and then they have to pay their troops food, so they have the ruler and 2. So they consume all their food, but they're able to pay all their troops, and they all survive. So the only one hit hard by winter is Northumbria. Wow, they got hit really hard. Lesson learned, have extra food for the winter. At this point in this 2-part series, we've seen every feature in the game, and we're over 30 minutes in this video. So rather than show the actions in winter, which we've seen before, we've seen all of them, I think I'm going to call the video here. A few comments though, as we wrap up. Comment number 1, there was a comment made on the previous YouTube video where I mentioned that East Anglia moved through here and ended up here and gained control of these 2 spaces. The Gray Man pointed out that he thought the rule stated that it's only the areas you end in. And that's actually the case. So you don't get, from the way the rules are written, you don't get control if your forces move through an uncontested area. You only get control of the areas they end in. So we should not have given control of this area to East Anglia. The second thing that I wanted to call attention to that we didn't talk about here is that each one of these faction boards have a special ability written down at the bottom here. And I don't see these mentioned anywhere in the rules, so they're really easy to miss. This one here is recruit 1 extra land unit in the same area where you take a furred action. So where you recruit, as Mercia only, you can recruit an additional unit. So they have a special furred ability here. Each one of the factions has a special ability. We didn't talk about those in the course of gameplay. In Mercia, when they recruited, they didn't have enough gold to take advantage of that. But it is there. If you're playing the game and learning the game, make sure you read your faction's special ability because they aren't mentioned anyplace else. It's really easy to miss these. And then lastly, the only big thing that we really haven't seen is ship movement. And it's not very complex, but it does allow you to move fairly quickly around the board and carry troops, of course, from one place to another. So there is some ability here in this game to be able to move pretty quickly by using ships and building ships to move along. But other than that, I think those are all of the major features
that we've seen in the game here. The last thing that I would offer up is that we haven't really shown too much of how the lordship cards can be used by factions. And as you go forward with the game, you're going to be playing those lordship cards quite a bit. They're quite creative and they allow you to do a number of things. In addition to when you are doing things like a furred action or a development action, you can spend a lordship card as 1 gold coin too. So if you're just a little bit short of doing a certain action when it's your turn, you can discard a lordship card to get a gold coin to make that final payment for the gold that you might need for that particular action. And you could discard, more than one too. So you can use them as gold coins too. The last thing I would say, that if you're learning the game, I think this video could give you a good sense of how gameplay flows and how this flow of gameplay goes. There may be some edge cases that I've gotten wrong though. In particular, for example, that summer plague that we had way on, where one units would starve to death if they rolled a blank die on their die roll. I suspect we should have rolled that for the neutral units too, in kind of reading the text of the card now, but I didn't do that. So those types of things I may be slightly off on, but I think I've gotten the major elements of gameplay. Hopefully this video will give you an idea if it's something that you might like and something you might enjoy. I really like this game. I love the gameplay elements to it. It flows well. It gives you that 4X-ish type of board game experience in a very classic setting that feels and just oozes art and culture and history here. So I've greatly enjoyed the time I've been spending with the game and look forward to keep playing it. Thanks so much for watching. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. And if you enjoyed this video, you might also want to check out another Phalanx game coming up soon on their crowdfunding, which is Hood, Troubles in Sherwood. I'll put a link to the overview video for that one here. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.